Thank you everyone for coming. This is a very exciting period for us. This project actually started in San Francisco 7 years ago, the roots of it. And it's amazing to see how long it took, first of all. But also, actually, some of our ideas definitely did not work, but some of them are working extremely well. What we're talking about today is what makes Supra different than other layer ones out there. And this is a major innovation in the Web3 space. What we do is we vertically integrate everything. We call it the all-in-one blockchain. And what these can power are these next generation dApps that you guys will be building. So let's talk about the problem today. Okay. So most decentralized applications need to run through multiple networks. The more networks you have to engage with, it adds latency. You have to communicate with it. It has to respond back to you. It also breaks your security guarantee. You don't have the unified shared security of the layer one itself. You will have an external network for Oracle feeds, next external network for automation, randomness, crossing communication. And this gets exacerbated and worse when you have this modular stack. Now, this is contrarian in the industry because everyone's talking about layer twos, and my team knows how I feel about layer threes. My opinion is that they're a very bad idea. And this gets worse because in the modular stack, now you have a layer two for execution, a layer one for settlement, another network for data availability, and still you have to use different networks for these Oracle services. And remember, many smart contracts, they're limited in what they can do if they don't communicate with the outside world. Remember, your application is as weak as the weakest connection here. So you want to make sure that you're very careful about it. Moreover, the developer has to manage multiple coins and different frameworks, and it's just complicated. It's more expensive for the developers or users. You don't have shared security. You have broken security guarantees. And also, it's slower. Anyone that's telling you that the modular stack is going to be faster, they don't know what they're talking about. Once again, different frameworks, different programming languages, multiple gas tokens. It's very complex, and it's not a good way to go. Moreover, liquidity is going to get fragmented. We introduce a better way to build through vertically integrating all these things into a singular architecture, a unified system. Now, don't get me wrong, mass level software development, you build in a modular manner. Each component, for example, consensus, can be swapped out and updated. Our Oracle protocol, swapped out and updated without affecting consensus. We are modular internally, but our network is a unified network. Full vertical integration. What we're bringing to market is a multi-VM platform. We focus on the actual infrastructure itself. The virtual machines out there, there's adoption in EVM. We are also very bullish on the Move language, developed by Facebook, pioneered further by Aptos and Sui. And we are going to be contributing to that greatly as well. But by February of next year, Solana applications will be able to run on Supra. And I believe that those Solana applications run smoother and faster than on Solana itself, on Supra. Automation is a decentralized if this and that. Many folks, you would think a world computer could have some automation, but actually you have to use what's usually in Oracle or an automation network. Automation is part of the Oracle problem. It's an external network or entity that triggers the automation logic. Blockchains don't have that natively usually. We're bringing this to market. Moreover, this notion of a world computer, however, the world computer cannot speak to other blockchains. There's no cross-chain communication. That doesn't make sense. So we have designed a cryptographically secure cross-chain communication protocol, and we're going to be offering this to every application that builds on Supra. Of course, our first major product was price feeds and on-chain randomness. My understanding is it's about 115 existing applications across many ecosystems are using our randomness and price feeds on various mainnets. These things allow smart contracts to do so much more. As John mentioned, randomness is a very esoteric topic, and we have a cryptographically secure where you get this randomness and the price feeds on a block-to-block basis is built in. So this is a really great user experience. So our consensus algorithm is also not some fork of some other chain. Our team is very deeply into research, and we pioneered a novel approach called Moonshot. In a test we ran about 3 weeks ago across 300 nodes around the world, we actually hit 500,000 transactions per second throughput with sub-second consensus latency. For a 300 node network, this, I believe, is a world record, and I don't think this has been beaten. Moreover, we do have additional innovations here. There's another consensus algorithm called Sailfish, which is a DAG. That's a little bit closer to the Sui and Aptos models, which some of their researchers have told our researchers that it should outperform them, surprisingly. We're very excited about that. To be clear, DAGs do not scale usually to many nodes. And we do think that in the marketplace, more nodes with more state replication, the more nodes you have, I think there's a premium. That's why you have a premium on Bitcoin, premium on Ethereum, even on Solana. They're not just 120 nodes. So we're also running tests to see if Moonshot or Sailfish will be what we adopt. Right now, we're going to market with Moonshot. Very high throughput and very low latency. Multi-VM support. We didn't focus on trying to recreate a different programming language. Once again, EVM is probably not going anywhere, at least not for a decade, in my opinion. I think Move language is the future, and it's safer, and the next wave of developers that are coming are going to really like it. It's much easier to not make a mistake. Solana applications, Rust-based, CosmWasm, we'll also be providing support for these as well. So what's great is we have, I think, approaching 170 applications that have signed MOUs that want to participate with Supra. And they come from Ethereum world, Aptos and Sui world, Solana applications, CosmWasm. And we're agnostic to that. In fact, we just worked on the engine itself. We optimize data dissemination, consensus, parallel execution. And the language on top of that engine, we don't care. How do we achieve this? Our unique insight is what we call a tribes and clans architecture. The entire system is a tribe. The clans are randomly subsampled nodes or subcommittees that are shuffled periodically. And each of these clans can be running different services. It's almost like a decentralized microservice architecture. And we maintain security by randomization of these nodes into new committees fairly often. So one clan can be running our DORA, Decentralized Oracle Agreement. DORA got into a top academic venue. These things are like double-blinded peer review processes. Our team is stacked with some very famous people, led by Dr. Anika Kate. He's the inventor of KZG commitments. These are used in EigenDA. These are used in Ethereum DA solutions, data availability sampling. And also Dr. Kate is a pioneer in what's called DKG, distributed key generation. And we actually will be publishing a new class of, or new type of DKG that's called class group DKG. That's more for the crypto geeks here. VRF, verifiable random function. This is enabled through threshold cryptography, which you have to do DKG first. So different clans can be running this service. The other clans can be doing execution sharding. So they can be responsible for the execution of different virtual machines. How do we keep this secure? As I mentioned, randomization and shuffling often is paramount. This is necessary to maintain security. I like to give the analogy that a body of water, if it doesn't flow, if it's just stagnant, it'll become a swamp. This will happen with node operators too. Clusters of nodes that are providing a single service, maybe it's an AVS, maybe it's a Chainlink node, whatever. If they're not shuffling often, they're all in the same Slack group. They told me this. They're all just talking together. Oops. But what you want to do is build a system where you can't collude. You want to be collusion resistance. Hence, you want to shuffle the nodes often. Moreover, so this is a shuffling of clans to different responsibilities in the network. But we can also shuffle the constitution of the nodes within the clan. Both are required. And Supra gets randomness built in anyways. So this is a free service. It's a block-to-block native VRF-based shuffle. So it's unpredictable, but it's also deterministic. So this is the major thing that we want to talk about. All the other stuff is great. High throughput layer 1, built-in pricey data, every block, zero block delay automation, zero block F, and then cross-chain communication. This is really cool, great. But Supra Containers is what has actually resonated with developers the most. What are containers? Containers are basically your own block space or your app space on the layer 1 itself. If you were ever thinking about a layer 2, a layer 3, a subnet, a paired chain, a Cosmos zone, you should consider a container instead, because you can actually have the performance of our layer 1. You can actually set your own rules. And when I talk about rules, I'm referring to your economic rules. You can have your own token. Now, this is what I'm about to share is really exciting. You can have your own token in your container, and you can map your gas token to the opcodes. Okay, so what does that mean? It means in Ethereum, you have Gwei, like the minimum unit for gas, and blockchains in Supra will charge under the hood in Supra token. Nonetheless, since we're so high throughput and we're low latency, our fees are expected to be very small. we're trying to drive costs down to as low as possible, right? Now, if our costs are, let's just say an example, say that someone wants to launch a game in a container, and let's just call it G coin. So a game coin container. They have a G coin for a gas, and they map different opcodes to a different cost. Maybe they say, you know what, on Supra, to move this NFT from one person to another, it costs 1 penny. But in our container, in G coin, it's $1. So that's a 99, not percent, 99x markup. Yet the player, it's small, relatively small. It doesn't have to be that extreme. It could be 10 cents, but still a 10x markup, right? So now what does this mean? It means that there's a business model for your token. You set the rules, you have a revenue stream for your application. And this is pretty innovative because you as a developer can just focus on the user experience, the application. You don't have to bootstrap infrastructure. You don't have to worry about economic security. You could launch a container very cheaply. And you only start to pay for more block space as you consume more block space. As you consume more block space, you also know you have that 10x markup anyways. So it's a very sustainable model and it's predictable, right? So we think this is going to create very interesting use cases in economic systems. Of course, once again, everything under the hood will have to be paid in Supra. But the surprising thing is our researchers have realized that containers can be composable. Layer 2s are not composable, and trying to do that through shared sequencing is a nightmare. Probably won't happen. When we have this composability across containers, you also have shared liquidity. So this is strictly better than what's being done before. Whether it's a subnet, parachain, layer 2s, layer 3s, you break composability, you break liquidity. There's only so far you can go. Ethereum has less than 3,000 applications, and yet there are people shilling millions of layer 2s. It's delusional, and it's really bad for liquidity fragmentation. But if you have containers that are composable, that can share liquidity, that has low latency, that has access to Oracle data block by block, randomness block by block, the zero block delay automation, and cross-chain communication capabilities, this is going to enable super dApps. So it's like an app chain, but on the layer 1 itself. Just to give you a sense of how that works, it's a logical partition of the block space. So think of a namespace or a domain system, like an IP address. So the first number could be which VM does this application belong to. The second number could be the container ID. The third strings of numbers can be the smart contract addresses of the containers themselves. And what this does is it allows us to logically encapsulate a set of different smart contracts and applications within your container. Moreover, if one container heats up and has a hotspot, okay, like there's an NFT drop or there's getting a lot of users, in traditional blockchains, everyone gets penalized with the fees. But here we have isolated fee markets on your container basis. So someone that gets congestion in one or a lot of activity in one container does not directly affect everyone else's fees. And finally, part of the reason why this is possible is with this information, I mentioned like the IP kind of mapping or container tagging. With this information, it's very efficient for us to assign transaction execution across cores and threads, CPU cores and threads. We have greater parallel execution as a result. So we really did think first principles on how do we get the data out most efficiently through the network, how to reach consensus as quickly as possible, and parallel execution. That's true end-to-end latency. So in your container, you can have governance. You can have a DAO that decides the rules. The DAO can adjust the opcodes in your token, right? Once again, your token is the gas token effectively. And you can customize the fees. So I'm really excited about that because this will allow a sustainable business model and a pretty straightforward business model. There's no Ponzi scheme. There's no these perverse incentives to do these strange things. It's just more straightforward. This is how much it costs. It costs so little on Supra because we're high throughput. And this is the margin, and it's predictable. Going through this a little bit here, the setup costs are very low. We might even try to make it free or like $20. It's fully integrated. You get access to our price feed data, access to our on-chain randomness, automation, cross-chain communication, composable. The containers are composable with each other. So different ecosystems could compose with each other. To understand what that means is layer 2s are not composable today, right? You cannot have an atomic transaction, but in containers you can. And as a result, you can have shared liquidity. It may not be perfectly shared liquidity because guess what? Some containers don't want to mix with others for a variety of reasons. Maybe this is a RWA container that has to have KYC AML folks that cannot touch open DeFi containers. These things coming together are going to enable what we call super dApps. It's a next generation application that you just couldn't do on any other layer one without using multiple networks, multiple tokens, introducing multiple vulnerabilities. If you're building directly on the layer one itself, it's lower latency. That means it's faster. There's shared security through the randomization and shuffling of the nodes. It's a layer one itself. It's a simplified developer experience because there's only one framework to work with. It's cheaper for builders and thus it's cheaper for users. So we do hope that any dApp across EVM, MoveVM, Solana VM, CosmWasm will be able to deploy on Supra without any modifications, without having to redo audits, and still take advantage of our built-in services and speed. And I'm pretty confident that, let's just put it this way, we're collecting the data, but we test against Aptos's Block SCM, we test against Solana C-Level, Monad's EVM, and other approaches. And depending on the payload, we actually win many times. And we're making some optimizations here. So true end-to-end, just to let you guys know, the optimizations you do for data dissemination, the gains you can get there are greater than you can get from parallel execution. Because you can save hundreds of milliseconds in data dissemination as well as consensus. For parallel execution, you're only saving tens of milliseconds, maybe 50. You can save seconds in the others, rather, and you can save hundreds of milliseconds in parallel execution. Nonetheless, the team knows we want to save every 50 milliseconds that are possible. And this is what we're optimizing for. And Supra is going to just constantly iterate and try to make the most performant machine possible. So let's just go through some applications that are possible here. Once again, a Super dApp is something that takes advantage of our cross-chain communication protocol, our native price feeds, has access to real-world data, has automation, decentralized if this, then that. One of my favorite use cases I think it's going to enable is like a perp dex that uses our price feeds, right? But also uses our automation for limit orders and liquidations. And with automation like this, we can enable new business models. Like the liquidation could be actually redirected to the dApp itself. Right now, the liquidation is to the first person that triggers it. And this actually ends up causing folks to bribe oracles and bribe block producers to get their transaction right behind the oracle update to collect the liquidation fee. Creates, once again, strange incentives and MEV, a lot of MEV because of that kind of stuff, or toxic MEV. But also the application in which this whole thing is running on isn't necessarily collecting that liquidation fee, but with automation, this can be a new business model, new revenue stream. And we're really excited about that. So of course, we talked about randomness, high throughput, low latency, multi-VM support, cross-chain liquidity, native DeFi systems. We're going to just go through this a little bit. I talked about the next-gen perp dex example that leverages automation, our price feeds, cross-chain communication, ultra-dynamic NFTs. This might be leveraging our oracles, our randomness. It might be a multi-chain NFT drop, who knows? For those that aren't really familiar with the importance of identity, it might not seem like a cool idea or might not be that attractive, but actually decentralized identity solutions can lead towards reputation systems, which can lead towards under-collateralized lending. DeFi is not super capital efficient because it's usually super over-collateralized. But once we can have identity systems, we can start to have credit systems. In the age of AI, there may be data sets that belong to or that are anchored into other ecosystems. Through Supra being a cross-chain hub, we may be able to consolidate this and do payments and do access control. So ultimately, Supra is this kind of star topology or hub and spoke model. We do connect with layer ones and layer twos. We're already servicing around 80 ecosystems. On Supra, however, we're not going to charge for a price feed or VRF, at least not for a long time. Eventually, especially after our competitors turn on their fees for price feeds and VRF, we're going to keep our fees very low or keep them off for a while. But eventually, we're probably going to charge all the other chains, but it's free on Supra. So developers are going to be like, you know, it's actually faster, cheaper, more secure, and it's going to be compelling for them to start their own container on Supra. So this is part of our strategy, and we think it's going to work. So we do expect many of you folks to come up with new ideas that our team could have never thought of. We think the tools that we're providing you will enable use cases that are going to create a lot of value for the world, actually, for end consumers. And through what? By being more efficient, by cutting out middlemen. And I think it's about time. So we're really excited about bringing this to market. So there are going to be many things, as you can tell, that are probably only going to be possible on Supra. Us being multi-VM support means that your application out of the box should be able to deploy directly on Supra without having to re-audit. For example, this is really interesting. Some of our parallel execution strategies for the EVM does require us to make some changes to the EVM, which I talked to Nethermind and other folks that have EVM clients. We're going to open source it. It's all good there. But the key, our team has been instructed, you can change the EVM. You cannot change the solidity. So we don't want developers to have to redo anything with their code. So it's really interesting what's coming around the corner. We're really focused on high performance. Of course, security is number one. High performance is number two. Shared liquidity, composability, how the rest is very important for us to create an actual ecosystem, a unified ecosystem. And that's what we're doing. Last thing is, as we go to market, I can't say the exact date, but it's pretty soon. We're going to be launching our ecosystem fund. So we've been very disciplined not to touch our ecosystem tokens. Okay. And as you all know, we have 500,000 KYC verified users through our gamified learn to earn program. And folks that win the Super dApp competition, I think it's starting in November, will have access to our platform. We'll dedicate an entire week of missions to get you in front of 500,000 KYC token holders, right? And also a chance to be on Killer Whales. We have partnerships with Ripple Crypto, Hashkey, Google Cloud, others. And we were looking forward to be running this program every single quarter, maybe for 3 years straight. So we can bootstrap an ecosystem through this mechanism. And we're really excited about this promotion. So that's it. Thank you so much for coming and have a great day.